I usually start my mixes with the drums. Drums provide a solid foundation on which we can build the entire mix. So let's start working on the electronic drums in the rap section. The first thing I'm going to do is to group these drum tracks. That will allow me to control them more easily. I will select the tracks, go to the mixer. You can open the mix console by hitting F3 on your keyboard. Right click on them and select Add Group Channel to selected channels. Make sure that configuration is set to stereo, otherwise you will not be able to pan any of the tracks. Now let's name this group. Let's call it Electronic Drums. Click Add Track. So now when I solo this group, it will automatically solo the tracks that are connected to it. We have 6 drum tracks in this part of the song. A kick track, high snare, low snare, and reverb snare. Hi-hat, and crash. Now let's listen to them all together. First, snare seems a bit too loud compared to the rest of the drum kit, so I'll turn it down. But which one? Let's listen to the snare tracks again and see why we have 3 of them. This first one is a brighter snare sample. I chose this because it cuts through the mix easily and provides a strong attack. The second one is darker, but it sounds fuller. So when you combine the 2 snare sounds, you get a composite snare sound that's full, crisp, and powerful. Combining 2 or more samples is a technique that we use commonly in music production, especially for kick and snare. The trick is to choose your sounds carefully. Try to combine sounds that complement each other rather than compete with each other. And finally, our third snare. This one comes in on the second beat of each measure and has a heavy amount of reverb on it. I added this to provide a sense of depth to the drums. Reverb is our main tool for providing depth, for adding that Z dimension to our mixes, and we will talk about it in great detail. But why do I have a separate track for snare with reverb instead of applying reverb as an effect to my first 2 snare tracks? As you can see, this one has a serious amount of reverb on it. I love it for the sense of depth that it provides, but you cannot have this much reverb on every snare hit. It will turn everything into mud, especially where the snare gets busy. So I chose to keep my main snares totally dry and selectively add reverb at specific points. So once again, which tracks do I turn down? I will turn down both of the dry snares just a bit. Let's cut them by 3 dB. If you enable Q-Link here on the mixer, it will link the channels that are selected together. Yep, this sounds good. The snare doesn't stick out like before, and turning down the dry snare tracks made the reverb snare track a bit more prominent in comparison, and I like that. Now let's work on the kick. It sounds fine, but I'd like to give it more body. We can do that with an equalizer. In Cubase, every track has its own EQ section, and these are pretty good. And they also put less strain on your computer's CPU compared to the EQ plugins, so it's a good idea to use them if you are planning to have EQ on several tracks. But I will use a plugin EQ here because it makes it visually easier to show you what I'm doing. For that, I will come to Inserts here. Open the first insert box. Under the EQ tab, select Frequency. Frequency is a very powerful and advanced equalizer and is overkill for a kick track. But I opened it for a reason. There's a nifty little button here with a speaker icon. If you turn it on, it allows you to hear only the frequency range that you are manipulating. So let me solo the kick, play it, and when I grab an EQ band, you will hear only the part of the kick around the frequency of that band. This is the part of the kick that I want to emphasize. It's around 60 Hz, right at the crossover point between the sub-bass and bass ranges. I will go overboard with this and turn this up by as much as 10 dB. But I will turn up the Q value so that this boost will affect a narrow band. As you noticed, I'm using the second band. That's because I want to reserve the first band to cut the very low frequency rumble, which is of no use to us because nobody will hear it. But rumble in this range consumes a great deal of energy, so it's a good idea to cut it to gain some headroom. So I'll set this to 96. That gives us the steepest filter that this EQ can afford. I'll bring this to about 25 Hz. This means that I'm aggressively cutting anything below 25 Hz. Let's play the kick again and I'll turn this low cut filter on and off as we play. See if you can notice the difference. You didn't hear any difference, right? But we cut a lot of energy and that will give us headroom that we can use for other instruments. Of course, by doing this, I raised the volume of the kick quite a bit and I can fix it easily by turning it down from the fader. Next, I'd like to make the hi-hat just a little bit brighter. They sound a little dull right now. I'll insert another instance of frequency. This time I'll go to the highest band, the 8th band, and select High Shelf. Click the solo button again to look for that sweet spot. $10K seems about right. Right now everything about 10K is being boosted by about 4 decibels. That gives the hi-hat a bit more sheen. We boosted the lows on our kick and the highs on our hi-hat. So now our drum effectively goes both lower and higher than when we started. Going back to our three-dimensional analogy, we enlarge our y-axis. This is one way of making everything sound bigger in a mix, if that's what you're going for. One last thing I'll do is add some saturation to the entire drum kit. For that, I will go to the drum group and insert Magneto. Under distortion. Magneto emulates the tape machines used in recording studios in the analog era and adds harmonics to your content. This makes it sound fuller and richer and blends the sounds together. Saturation is often referred to as a glue that binds the sounds. Like any good thing, though, too much of it can be too much, so you don't want this across all your tracks. The saturation knob is self-explanatory. The frequency settings let you fine-tune the range where saturation will be applied, and you can boost or cut the high frequency content of the harmonics here. The solo button lets you listen to only what's being added. So let's listen to the whole thing. I will just leave this with its default settings. I don't want a heavy drum sound in this part of the song.